We were hoping for something different, but we were going to schedule something with Stamford EMS, but that didn't work out. So we're putting together something quickly, which is a little thing on weather. Now, contrary to what John, I know I'm supposed to be able to get full screen, but contrary to what John said, I'm not going to tell you how to change the weather because nobody's figured that out yet. But a little bit on how to effectively use weather forecasts and weather reports, since that gets to be kind of important for us, especially for field day and other outside activities. Oops, page down. Oh, come on.
John, when are we having a training on how to use a computer?
Right during this session. Okay. There are a bunch of myths about the weather. The biggest one is that the weatherman is always wrong, usually wrong. That's actually not true. When you look at it, the weather forecasts are generally more than 90% correct.
1% of the time.
When there is inaccuracy, it's usually on the extent, not on what's going to happen. You know, we're going to have showers versus it rains all day. That's, you know, essentially the same thing. There's also the myth that private weather services like AccuWeather and the Weather Channel are more accurate. That's not true. In comparison after comparison after comparison, they come out to be about the same. And there's a very good reason for that. That reason is that they're all using the same basic data, which is provided by the National Weather Service. And oh, by the way, you, the taxpayer, are providing it free of charge, because the law says that the National Weather Service has to provide the data to anybody who wants it. Some of you may remember a couple of months ago, there was a really big stink because the Republicans wanted to shoot down some, literally some satellites, some upgraded satellite upgrades from the National Weather Service, saying, well, we don't understand. Weather Channel and all those are much, much better. Why does the National Weather Service need these new satellites? Weather Channel and AccuWeather and all the rest of these private services went running over and go, no, you don't understand. Without that, we don't have the data we need. So all of a sudden the Republicans were like, oh, yeah, we need those satellites. Anyway, the thing that those services do is they provide higher levels of precision and they provide more tailored delivery. But remember, precision and accuracy have no relation to each other. So instead of saying, well, it's going to be between 1 and 2 inches of rain, if I say, well, it's going to be 1.583 inches of rain, but then there's no rain, I've been more precise, but I'm just as wrong. And the other big one is that the weather can change dramatically in minutes. And the answer is no, it can't. Actually, it takes hours. You just haven't been paying attention. I went inside, I've been inside all day, I haven't looked out the window. I come out 6 hours later, it was sunny, now it's cloudy. Oh my God, the weather just changed instantly. But that's what happens. People aren't paying attention. The fastest moving storms move at max 30 miles an hour. So, you know, it's not instantly. Okay, not a myth. If the Weather Channel has somebody covering it live, it really is just an overhyped rain shower. There's actually something that psychologists talk about now called the Jim Cantor effect. Cantor effect. That people don't pay attention if it's being covered live because Weather Service sends this guy, the Weather Channel sends this guy Jim Cantor out to cover all these storms. And people just go, oh, if he's out there, I don't have to pay attention to him. Even hurricanes, tornadoes, whatever, they just don't pay attention. Okay, why can't they be more accurate? The main answer is that we don't have enough weather sensors. We don't collect enough data. To actually get it right, to actually forecast correctly, you would need one sensor, temperature, sunlight, humidity, barometric pressure, every square mile over the entire surface of the Earth, and then every 1,000 feet up to about 50,000 feet. We don't have that. You know, here in the Northeast, we're fairly densely populated. We have, on average, one sensor every 100 square miles. You know, you go out in the Midwest, and they've got one sensor every 500 square miles, and of course the ocean. You know, if you're lucky, a ship happens to go through that once a month, through an area once a month, and gives you a reading. The other thing is that the mathematical models do always need updating, if for no other reason than the fact that the shape and surface of the Earth changes, either through geological activity or more so man-made activity. You take down a forest, that changes what happens when the sun hits that forest, hits that area. And it changes what happens in terms of heat, humidity, and everything else. Also, we don't have the computer horsepower to process the full models. It would take every computer in the entire world to process the full models. And, you know, and then they would still be running 2 or 3 days behind on their forecast. So we don't have they use simplified models. No choice. Two of the really big things are media overhype and the focus on precision. You know, people have gotten used to the weather forecast being wrong because the media hypes it. You know, listen to News 12, listen to News Radio 88. You know, tune in, major storm coming, you gotta listen, otherwise you're gonna die. And it turns out to be a rain shower or something like that. And again, this focus on precision. You may have noticed a lot of these weather services now will tell you exactly what the temperature and pressure, temperature and rain and cloud cover are going to be every hour. And there's one that even gives you every 15 minutes. They're never going to be right. But you look at it and you say, well, they're never right, because they're not. Because they're trying to give you precision that they can't deliver. And then, of course, public can't deal with nuances, like what does a 30% chance of showers mean? Okay? In fact, and that's one thing where the weather people are a little bit screwy in that they've got two meanings to that. A 30% chance of showers, depending on how they word it, may mean where you are, there's a 30% chance you're going to get some rain during the day. There's also a meaning that says that this area that we cover, 30% of this area is going to have a shower, which is not the same thing at all. One says there's a 30% chance where you are right here. The other one says, depending where you are, there's no chance at all, or maybe there is a chance. So the public doesn't understand these nuances, and the weather people have to learn that.
70% can take a bath.
Sorry, what?
70% can take a bath.
Yes, right. Okay. There are two types of weather events. Weather systems. This is when they're on a high pressure or low pressure is developing in the Ohio Valley, and they move eastward, and there'll be a patch cold front, and blah, blah, blah. That's a whole system. It's a whole big thing, and it's something's going to happen. Those are predictable. You can start forecasting days before they form. You can see when they form. You can forecast where they're going to go. You just can't forecast with absolute accuracy exactly where it's going to go, exactly how fast it's going to go, and exactly how much rain or wind it's going to dump. You can get somewhat close, but you can't forecast exactly. Local weather events. You know, think about the afternoon thunder showers here in the summer. You can forecast that conditions are ripe for it, but you can't forecast it's going to happen, because that's going to depend on exactly how much sunlight hits. It's going to depend on exactly how much humidity, moisture there is in the air. They will pop up fairly quickly, but still, you're talking about an hour or two. It's not something where I'm standing here 1 second and there's not a cloud in the sky, and 3 minutes later, there's a massive thunder shower over me. You know, despite what they do on science fiction shows, you know, where you got the madman controlling the weather, it doesn't happen that way. And for those, you just have to watch the sky and look up every couple of hours. Oh, it's getting real cloudy. It's probably going to rain. All right, there are all sorts of interesting weather sites on the web, and you can use them to do a better job of figuring out what's going to happen where you are. We're going to look at a couple of them, one of which announced today that they're going to become a for-pay site, damn it, but we'll get into that. Sorry?
Which one?
Storm Pulse, $400 a year for the base level. Yeah, that really was upsetting. Okay, let me get to Weather Underground. I'm not obsessive about the weather, am I? Okay, first one is Weather Underground. This is I thought I had that set up. So what they're doing, these are all heavily advertised. You know, pretty much half your page is going to be advertisements. Okay? It beats having to pay for it. Notice there is an active advisory, a freeze warning, believe it or not, tonight. Here's your, your basic forecast. Here's the winds are from the northeast at 3 miles, 50 degrees. Here's sunrise, sunset, your basic forecast. Basic conditions, you can see your radar, and then they have all sorts of other goodies on here. Extended forecast, you can see the radar, you can see the satellites, more details of the forecast. Then you get into the hourly forecasts. The hourly forecasts are interesting because, again, they're never going to be accurate. And people count on these things to be accurate. They're an indication. Take it as an indication. If they're showing that it's going to get darker about 3 o'clock and it's, there's chance of rain increases, just go on the chance of rain. But if it says there's a 50% chance of rain, don't use the 50%. Say, look, there's a pattern, it looks like it's going to head towards rain, figure it's going to rain, you'll be much better off. All sorts of scientific discussion, blah, blah, blah. The really fun part of Weather Underground, though, is the radar. I'm sorry, the Wonder Map. I didn't even do it right. Wonder Map. Sorry, I hit the wrong button.
Is that part of Weather Underground?
Yeah, this is Weather Underground Wonder Map. This thing shows you all sorts of localized stations, private weather stations. A lot of people have their own weather stations now in their backyards. A lot of schools have their weather stations. And you can really see what's going on in the area. Now, that's both good and bad. The good part is it's fun information. The bad part is it's not really of a lot of value to you. It's like News 12, where they have their hyper-local forecast. Well, in Ridgefield, north of Cedar Lane, it's going to be 42 degrees. In Ridgefield, south of Cedar Lane, it's going to be 43 degrees. BFD, what does it matter? So there's a lot of data here, but what does it do for you? You can't even use it for sailing because these stations are all on land, so you can't see what the winds are going to be out there.
Can
You've
you
got
show us
like 2
what?
or 3 down in this area?
Yeah, and this is, let me see if I've got them all showing. Hold on. Oh yeah, these are the personal weather stations. Yeah, okay. So let me move this over just a bit. Come back. Okay. The colors represent just temperature. This is showing the wind. The wind is from that direction coming towards the circle. And one of these little bars mean this is 0 to 5. That's adding another 5, and so on. But it's great information. It looks sexy, but the question is, what does it really mean to you?
I noticed that Stamford and Greenwich,
Yeah.
different wind direction,
Yes.
and south of that is no direction.
What's the red one?
No wind or?
The red one.
Orange one up there, White Plains, the red one?
That's a sun that's saying it's partly cloudy.
No, right above the.
Okay, that's the sun,
This.
that's the sun.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the sun.
oh,
That's just to show you that it's partly cloudy here because there's a little cloud, whereas up there, there's no cloud.
okay.
Okay, so when you're talking about light winds like this, and these are light winds, the thing that's going to drive that is just local topography. It could be a hill, something like that. When there's a major storm coming through, you'll see, like behind the storm, you'll see the winds from the northwest. Ahead of the storm, you'll see the winds from the south. and that can tell you where that frontal system is. But, even with major localized thunderstorms, you can really see a difference. But this is, you're talking about winds 0 to 5, it's just random, it's essentially random winds. And let me just see if we can find a storm. And we'll look at a storm. There were a lot of storms.
Texas.
Dallas.
Not at the moment,
Actually, looks
but
pretty
it
nice
looks
down
like
there.
Tennessee,
Show
yeah.
me Kansas.
No, there's nothing up here in Kansas at the moment, but let's look down here in Tennessee. Whoops.
Could you make something happen in Kansas?
Yes. Let me just, I'll just press the right button.
You gotta click your heels.
We'll ask Martha.
You have to have red shoes for that.
Yes. Hey, you got some stuff.
There you go.
Yeah. This computer's a little slow, so it's gonna take a minute. All right. That is some sort of big, ugly line of storms. We're looking at Chattanooga here. The usual thing is the redder, the more magenta, the redder into purple is the really severe stuff. So this is a line of storms. This is probably a system, a whole system moving through. And they're getting pounded.
Hey John, turn the animation on, it's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, that's really. I don't happen to like the animation on this one as much as I like some of the others. It'll show better on the others. But you can watch it move through. I'll do it with one of the others, but it's got better animation. But you can watch it move through. One of the things that you can do when if it's coming at you, is you can see where you are relative to the worst of the storm. And in the summer, we can watch a lot. You can see, for example, a really bad red coming over New Canaan. And John is up in New Canaan going, oh my God, it looks like the sky is falling up here. And I'm sitting down at Belltown Road going, not bad. You can go to the weather, you can go to the radar, and you can see the real difference. So you can see whether or not you're going to get tagged.
Don't see much in the way of direction of the winds up there.
Yeah. Low winds, we should be seeing more winds than that. I don't know. That's a good question.
Not
Let's
all
see
of
what
those you have wind report.
let's see what the official stations are showing. All right, so these are the official stations now, and they're showing more. Look at this guy, he's 25 knots, 15. So that's a little bit different. You can see ahead of the storm, winds are from the south, southwest. Behind the storm, winds are from the north, northwest. It's interesting information. It's not something you can use very much other than, to start developing that lore. If you're out there, you don't have your smartphone, you don't have your tablet, you have no way of looking it up, but the winds are from the south. Usually if the winds are from the south in this area, that means that there's something bad coming. It may be coming right away, it may be coming in a day or two, but usually if the winds are not from the northwest, it means something nasty is coming our way. The reason why they call it a nor'easter is because the winds are from the northeast. It's not coming from the northeast, the winds are from the northeast. That's why it's called a nor'easter, and those are particularly bad on the east coast, or at least in the northeast. And we'll look at some others. All of these give you the ability to change what you're looking at, so you can see the temperature and the wind, you can see the dew point and the humidity. Dew point and humidity tell you when fog is going to, dew point tells you when fog is going to form. So if the temperature outside is 10 degrees and they say the dew point is 10 degrees, there's a good chance there's going to be fog. At 10 degrees, that's going to be an ice fog. That's really dangerous stuff. Okay, at 40 degrees, it's fog. At 50 degrees, it's fog. In the winter, you start seeing the dew point and the temperature getting close to each other. That means you can expect some really icy, bad icy conditions from an ice fog. You'll go outside and your car will be covered in half an inch or an inch of ice. It will take you forever to get the windshield clean. So that's a piece of information you can use to figure out what's going to happen. It also, we probably don't have to really use this feature here, but it's showing us where the severe weather is. Surprise, surprise, it's where these big thunderstorms are, okay. Let's go on and look at, one of the nice things about the Wonder Map is you can look at different levels of reflectivity if you're really into this stuff. You can see the base of what's on the ground. You can say, I just want to see what's up in the mid-level of the atmosphere, the high level of the atmosphere. As you get to play with these things, you get to understand what it is those things mean. And it's kind of neat. So let's look at my favorite, which just happens to be my favorite, which is Weather Spark. And we'll have the URLs for you.
I have it on our website, on the
Oh,
weather
do you?
page.
Okay. All right. Weather Spark starts off with what they call the dashboard, which is a little bit of radar and a little bit of information and a little bit of data. So let's just look at the data for a moment. And let me set a couple of things. I got temperature. Let's get the pressure. Let's get the wind speed. So it's showing some nice stuff. This is right now, everything on this line is history, everything on this line is forecast. And it's showing you, here's the forecast, the consensus forecast, here's the historical low, here's the historical high, here's the first median, second median, standard deviation, standard deviation, standard deviation. So you can get an idea, how is this tracking against history? It's useful if you're trying to look a couple of months out. Obviously you can't forecast a couple of months out, but you can look and say, okay, what was the weather like historically on that day? Going back, what was the average, what was the record low, what was the record high, what are the standard deviations? You can get an idea of what you can expect. So if you're planning a trip, okay, this is a good time to go, it isn't a good time to go, because in general, this is the kind of weather I'll experience in this area. It's showing wind direction, and there are all sorts of things you can request on this, all sorts of pieces of information. It's very nice. The map, let me get the map.
Now, could you spread that up differently? I see it's a variety of years.
Yes.
Can you spread it out to months?
You can do a little bit of adjusting on the spread, but more so what it's letting you do is go back in history to see what it was back on a certain day in 1980, if you need to do that. But
So it went up ahead quite a
yeah,
bit also.
yeah, it goes up ahead. Because it's just showing you going ahead. You'll get a forecast up for about 10 days, and then from that point on, it's just showing you what the averages, historical averages were. So here's the map. Let's go out to Tennessee, and they all work about the same in terms of navigation. They all use essentially the Google. Here's Tennessee again. Let's see. I want. Yeah, I'll take 4 hours. So now. So here's the thing in motion, and it's showing you for a 4-hour period what happened. If you're sitting here in Birmingham, you can zoom right into Birmingham, and you can see in great detail exactly what's happening. If you just look like the last hour, you can see the storm coming at you and figure out what's happening. If you were in Birmingham, you would have seen that just about by the time it reached Birmingham, a really strong cell had developed. So you know you got a problem. And you can set the duration, you can set the speed of this thing. It's nice.
Now, is this anticipated, or?
No, this is actual. These are all actuals. You can get, you can change this display so it's showing the wind. It'll come up, yeah, here's the wind coming up. You can see that. Let me go into Birmingham for a second, zoom in over here. So if we zoom in, I lost my zoom. Oh, I know. Yes, John, I need to learn how to use this.
I wasn't gonna say anything,
All right, but let's, if you set this thing so that it's, Birmingham is there, as it comes through again, here it's coming. So again, sitting in Birmingham, you could be seeing what's happening. You know whether the ducts recover or not. One of the things we did on field day, both last year and the year before, there was forecasts for thunderstorms, there were reports on the radio about thunderstorms. We were able to look using our phones or our computers, because we have web service up there. But even on your phones, I'll talk about that in a minute, a lot of these are now on phone, on smartphone, and we were able to look at the radar in real time and see, is there anything coming at us? 2 years ago, we had to stop operation for a while, if you remember, a Saturday afternoon. Last year, we didn't. Some stations had stopped operation because there were reports of thunderstorms. We're looking at the radar and going, there's nothing near us, there's nothing coming to us. We were monitoring it, but we never had to stop operation. If you're out in a boat, if you're out on a bicycle, if you're out walking, if you're out working on the house, you can see whether or not something's really coming. So it's a nice thing. And most of these are now on your smartphones.
John?
Yes?
Is Weather Spark specifically an app for the smartphone?
No, it's, all of these are smartphone and, our Android and iPhone, but this is on the computer.
Okay.
It's a website. They also now have apps where they display the same information on the phone.
A couple years ago in Moscow, meteo service, weather service, made mistake, and forecast was good, but was at daytime big snowstorm. And Mayor Moscow, Lushko, called to whatever service and told, next time if you make this kind of mistake, no pay money I for you. This day you work free.
Yes, Bill.
John, I came in late and I was detained. I'd just like to know, are we discussing exclusively weather websites or a phone app?
Well, yeah, basically.
Yeah, because I just wondered if anybody had mentioned the teaching company's course in meteorology as a thorough introduction to fundamentals of weather. To recent,
And what's the name of it?
the teaching company
Okay.
course in meteorology taught by Dr. Robert Covell. He's a leading expert on the Weather Channel and several other, and a professor at UCLA. And so I just thought I'd drip that into the mix.
One of the things the people here who are pilots know is that you don't want to just listen to the weather forecast. You want to learn what weather is about, so that you can understand what they're really telling you. Okay? Because they're giving you specific wording, they're giving you specific readings and a specific forecast, but sometimes it helps know a little bit about what forms weather. So as you see things develop, you know whether it's going to come out towards the forecast or not.
What you anticipate.
Yeah, I know they said it's going to be clear, but I don't like the looks of the sky here. I think I'm going to say no. Or I think I'm not going to go, or I think I can go. Usually hopefully it's.
A lot of times you can go when they
Yeah.
are warning you,
Right.
because they have to warn you legally.
You know, for people who have particular outdoor activities, it's certainly advisable to get yourself grounded in just understanding weather more than
Right.
just something like this. Because, they say a front is coming, there's a front coming from the south. Well, they give you a time, but if you're out all day and you don't have access to any of this stuff, if you know what to look for in terms of cloud formation and everything else, you can tell when it's coming, and almost invariably, it's not on the time that they originally said when you watched on television.
Right.
But if you know how to read the weather above you or around you, you can form your own individual thing for your immediate area,
Right.
and be very safe.
And that's the thing that starts getting you able to deal with weather. Of course, like Bill was just talking about, is the kind of thing that helps
Yeah.
you understand what that's all about. You pick up some of that stuff when you're flying, you know, as a pilot, because you have to think about weather a lot. And you look at it and you say, I just don't like the look of that sky. You know,
It's got a green color.
Yeah, no, literally.
That's the worst.
One time I was flying out in Pennsylvania, and I wanted an instrument clearance, and they were gonna put me up in clouds. And I took a look at the cloud, and all the forecasts, everything was fine, and the cloud was brighter than I expected it to be. I didn't like how bright the cloud was. And I decided not to take the instrument clearance and land it. And about half an hour later, a monster thunderstorm came flying through. They told me later on when I was leaving, they said, hey, were you the guy who wouldn't take the clearance? I said, yeah. He said, boy, I don't know how you figured that, but, you know, we had people there being bounced around, you know. I mean, nobody crashed, fortunately, but it was a really bad day for some people. And I just didn't like the color of it, you know. And you talk to the airline pilots, and they'll say, yeah, I just didn't like the look of that color. You know, that green was just the wrong, you know, that cloud was just the wrong color. I didn't like it. So, okay. Oops. Another nice one is IntelliCast. Now, IntelliCast was one of the first of these newer, you know, web-based. It was really giving you great graphics and all that, and stupid ads. They're not doing as well. They haven't been keeping up as much. I don't know how much longer they'll be around compared to Wonderground and WeatherSpark and those. One of the things I do like about this one is, oops, wrong one. They do a very nice road weather. So if there was an issue here, of course we don't have any at the moment. Let me go out and see what I can find. Here we go. All right. So what they're doing is they're showing that this area here, if you're going to be driving that area there, you've got an issue to worry about. And somewhere on here, there's even a. Oh, there we go. There's some nice stuff. Okay. So here, road weather. Okay. The yellow up there means windy. You got foggy. You got wet. Ponding, which is fairly dangerous for skidding. Snowy, icy. So if you're going on a trip, you know, that could be very useful. My daughter was doing a lot of commuting from Rochester down to Baltimore, and she kept driving. Don't ask me why. And so, you know, I'd get on there and check these things for her, and she would avoid the worst of it. If you're going to go on a drive, that's a very useful thing to have. Again, in IntelliCast, you've got the animation, you can see the animation go by, you can see the radar, you can see the satellites, you can see what kind of cloud cover you've got. They're all providing that. I think I like the animation on the WeatherSpark best, but that's my personal.
Do they give you instantaneous? Do they predict the next day, 2 days, 3 days, month?
Not for, no.
Weather?
IntelliCast does have, you can go get the forecast. It's on their site, but it's not, when you go to IntelliCast, you're getting the map first, and that's what they're really focusing on, is here's what it is right now, kind of thing.
Basically, you know it's coming from the west to the east.
Well, yeah, in this
Both
case.
sides.
In this case, yes. Where's Storm Pulse? Here we go. The thing about Storm Pulse that was really nice, this is the one that's going to become a for pay, is that it does a really nice job with hurricanes, and it was really meant for very severe weather. I'm going to show you what it does since we don't have any hurricanes. Come on. Oh, there we go. I forgot I'm using this little computer. So let's look at Irene, because we know her. It might be worth it if you're a weather geek. The 400 a year. Sorry, I'm just slow.
Get a Mac.
There we go. So what this was showing was as Irene was forming, at every forecast, which they were doing first 8-hour intervals and 4-hour intervals, it was showing where it was, what it was, what it was looking like. You can see as it moves up the seaboard. So you go here, and it's showing you where the winds were. It's giving you the basic information. While Irene was an active storm, it was showing you all the different forecast models. And there are 11 or 12 different models of how hurricanes work. No one is right at this point. So you get to see all 12 of them. You get to see the consensus opinion. So for example, some models were showing it was going to go out into the Atlantic, a couple were showing it was going to go out that way, but the consensus was narrowing down on Stamford. And what it was that the consensus was right. No one model is right at this point, but the consensus is usually right. When the airlines do their forecasting, they take the data from all the major forecasting services and they use the consensus, because that's usually the one that's closest to the right answer. AccuWeather will be wrong. Storm Pulse will be wrong. National Weather Service will be wrong. But together, you get a pretty damn good, accurate picture of what's going to happen. Every once in a while, a storm does something funny, and it goes off, not where it was expected to go. That's because we don't have enough sensors. It's because we don't have enough horsepower to do all the computers. Interestingly, one of the models that's the most right, that's more often right in and of itself, is one that's done by the Fluid Dynamics Laboratory at U.S. Naval Academy. They don't have any weather people. They said the air, the atmosphere is just water. I mean, it's just fluid. It's a fluid. It operates like any other fluid going through pipes or standing, or an ocean or something like that. And they applied fluid dynamics to it. And they said, we don't care about weather. We don't want to know about, weather law and high pressures and low pressures, all that. And they're more often right than anybody else because they don't pay any attention to weather. They treat it as a strictly scientific exercise in fluid. Interesting.
The thing where they usually have a hard time is because most of their consensus things, even if they have a lot of different models, is have a huge database of a lot of things that are very similar. A high here, a low here, and a wind this way. But every once in a while, there's something that doesn't fit into any of that picture. And then they're just as lost as anybody else.
Because the model, they don't have it built.
They don't have a good model, so they don't know where to go.
A good example is the great storm that didn't happen in 2001. Remember the great snowstorm of 2001 that didn't happen? It was totally new. It was a totally new thing. They just didn't have any experience at what happens when you get a low pressure here and a low pressure there, and it's this kind of difference and blah, 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 blah. That's why the U.S. Naval Academy started this fluid dynamics. They said, we don't care about your experience in the past. We just want to know what this does scientifically like any other fluid. And that's why they're getting, they're still working on their model, but they're actually doing pretty well with it. It's kind of funny, throw the weatherman out. We don't need them. Although actually the most accurate forecasting to this day, if you want a really accurate weather forecast, find yourself a really accurate weather forecaster. Okay? There are people who are really good at forecasting weather. They've got the experience. They've spent 20, 30, 40 years in the business studying everything they could ever study, and they'll sit there and they'll look, that looks like what happened in Vienna in 2001, or that looks like what happened back in Cuba in 1902, and they had a funny little thing there, and they had this funny little thing here, so I think the weather's going to do that, and guess what? It does. And the problem is, those guys are retiring. But there are people, some of the old airline pilots are the same way, you know. You really want to know what the weather's going to do? You talk to a guy who's been flying for 40 years for American Airlines. You say, hey, what's the weather going to do? And they go, oh, it's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. And it will. All right, so Storm Pulse is very nice, but $400 a year soon. Those are the major ones. You've got AccuWeather. You've got Weather Channel, of course. Those are more for the the general public who just wants to look at something and have it say, you'll be fine, you won't be fine. They're no better, no worse than the National Weather Service. They just present it differently, or they present it with greater precision.
How about the weather bug?
WeatherBug is another one
I like that one.
that's really intended, it's intended for the general public. WeatherBug has a nice feature where you can run it on your computer as opposed to just look it on the web, and it will constantly display the weather on your taskbar. They're down at the bottom.
You're right, yeah.
It'll chirp at you if there's a weather advisory. Yeah, and it's on the phone too. John has it up on his phone. They do have, I feel that they have the best radar on the smartphone right now. So if you want to look at radar on your smartphone, I think what WeatherBug is presenting on the smartphone is the best. Personal opinion. The nice thing, but like I said, you can have it on your computer, so when there's suddenly a weather event, your computer will start chirping at you. The problem is it keeps chirping at you. And you're sitting there, every couple of minutes, chirp, 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 chirp. And when you eventually take your computer and throw it out the window, you decide, no, maybe the right answer is turn off that feature WeatherBug. But other than that, it's good. Hmm? All right, so,
Now,
yeah. How about later?
how important is the Skywarn program?
Haha. You don't really want to ask me that, do you? Okay, let me do this and I'll talk about Skywarn. One of the things WeatherBug does, which is nice, is it gives you information from a local weather station, private weather station. So you set up, for example, there's one at King Low. So I look at the King Low because it's a mile from me, so I know exactly what's happening. What's the difference? Okay, King Low tells me it's 4 degrees. The News 12 says, well, it's 6 degrees.
It's 5 degrees where you are.
Yeah, right. Okay, big deal. All right, some things to watch out for. If you hear talk of a supercell or a rotating tornado, rotating thunderstorm, a rotating thunderstorm, those are the big bad ones. Almost always get tornadoes from them. Not always, almost always. You get the worst winds, you get the worst hail. If you hear anybody use the word supercell or rotating thunderstorm, run. Head for the basement. If you're looking at your radar and you see an area, one of those really deep red, magenta, purple areas, and there's a hook pattern like that, run, because that means a tornado. That's almost always a sign that there's a tornado, either forming or already coming down when you see that hook. Whoops. John, you're going to have to teach me to use this thing. Okay, a wall cloud. On the top here, it's basically, you got a cloud, normal cloud deck, and then there's like a wall coming down. Wall clouds are usually associated with formation of a tornado. So if you see that kind of thing, there's a problem. There's a potential problem. There was a wall cloud that formed before that tornado in Springfield. A couple of people saw it. By the time they got the word to the National Weather Service, the tornado had already formed. Okay, there's also something called a shelf cloud. A shelf cloud is like a wall cloud, except it's a shelf. Instead of being vertical, it's horizontal. They look horrible, but they're usually not associated with any really severe weather. I mean, other than, the storm itself, whatever storm they're